a show about universal topics from a Latina perspective.
Latina Voices, Smart Talk.
Joining us today on Latina Voices, 3 stories, amazing stories. The commonality, grit, grind, and gravitas. Truly hope personified in Henry Gonzalez and what he is doing for the juveniles in Harris County. Resilience on steroids personified by Carrie Max Cook. We also have the luxury of Chief Patricia Cantu. Greetings, Latina Voices colleagues. I'm Sofia Droguet, Texas super lawyer, host, and producer. I'm honored to stand before you in this magnificent building, the 4th largest museum in the country dedicated to the Holocaust, the nation's first bilingual Holocaust museum, the only Holocaust museum to house a permanent gallery devoted exclusively to diaries from young people who wrote during war and genocide, during these transformative, unprecedented, complicated times of COVID-19. Houston's ranked once again one of the best cities in America, summed up as smart, skillful, and soulful, the American city of the future. From medicine to space to energy, we're at the forefront of innovation and are resilient problem solvers, working together after Hurricane Harvey and the aftermath as we navigate this global pandemic. Houston is also a rich cultural center where the arts thrive. This museum is a pillar of the city cultural landscape. It is committed to presenting exhibitions and programming that reflect the diversity and the cultures, engaging all of our community. The Holocaust Museum Houston does this daily, charged with educating students and the public about the dangers of prejudice and hatred in society. The Holocaust Museum Houston opened its doors in 1996. This year, 2021, marks the museum's 25th anniversary. It is an institution whose public value statement is to build a more humane society by promoting responsible individual behavior, cultivating civility, and pursuing social justice. That is the essence of all of it. It is about the humanity, honoring somber history, blending with hope, and inspiring action in all of us. The focal point at the entry, kaleidoscope of 1,500 acrylic butterflies, each representing 1,000 of the 1.5 million children who perished in the Holocaust. Then there's the Mintzberg Gallery and the Spira Central Gallery. We explore a world of social justice, human rights, and today we also celebrate the Latinx culture from the eyes of some Houston-based Latinx artists. The Withstand Latin Arts in Time of Conflict emerged. It was a juried exhibition, the first. 70 eyes, his Houston Latin artists. Art is a catalyst for social change and social justice. This exhibit has been described as a eulogy, a protest, a celebration, all crashing together, frequently breathtakingly in its themes and its ingenuity. The curators, Gabriela Magana and Rosa Ana Orlando, organized the show in sections following main themes. There was a social and political turmoil, U.S. border situation, women's issues, immigrant experience, quarantine experience, resilience, human rights, and others. Absolutely. The Withstand exhibit in the times of conflict has been described as optimism tempered with sacrifice. Isn't that not life for the most of us? When we return on Latina Voices Smart Talk. Welcome back to Latina Voices Smart Talk. On location, ever thankful to the Houston Holocaust Museum, an institution of humanity, of action, of sobering history, of hope. Here's to continued belligerent optimism, no other option. More when we return on Latina Voices Smart Talk. Honored to have Henry Gonzalez joining me today. He has been with Harris County for over 30 years. He started his amazing career with pretrial services and beginning his tenure with Harris County Juvenile Probation Department as a diversion officer in the intake division. He moved to the field division of the department as a field officer, a gang liaison, a resource training officer. He has been doing this for a litany of years. We are honored to have him as we envisioned a leadership day for the juveniles of Harris County here at the Holocaust Museum, Houston. Welcome, Henry Gonzalez.
Thank you, Sophia.
It's an honor to have you. Let's get the title perfectly and tell me a little bit about your journey and why was it so important for us that our first leadership day together we would do at the Holocaust Museum.
Great question. So the title, I'm Henry Gonzalez, the Chief Juvenile Probation Officer and Executive Director for the Juvenile Probation Department. I was here for a couple of openings. One was for the Latinx exhibit, and then before that, the human rights. And in looking at particularly the Latinx, I thought it would be a great opportunity for our kids in our system to be able to be exposed to not just the pieces of art, but to the artist and the reasons that they made this art. I think as far as the Holocaust Museum, what we're finding is a lot of our kids have really experienced a lot of trauma. And I think when they walk through this museum and the exhibits that they will be able to relate to that trauma and then hear from leaders who have also experienced. And then I think it's important for the kids to hear from some of our community leaders who have also experienced some adversities and how they were able to overcome those to become successful members of our community.
Successful in leaders, and you're exactly right. That's why we are so excited to have Carrie Max Cook and Patricia Cantu. Henry, we have become friends. We have become friends because you are a beacon of hope in this Harris County juvenile system. What are some of the things that you're trying to do for reform, for opportunity, for resilience, for moving forward for these kids?
Thank you for asking that.
Of course.
I really want to make sure that we minimize the number of kids that come into the juvenile justice system. Not every kid who engages in what I'm going to call typical adolescent behavior need to come into the juvenile justice system, and we need to find a way to stop that, and we're doing it. What I'm really pleased and excited about is when I came into this position in 2018 is that we also had a great turnover in the players within the juvenile justice system. 2019 gave us an entirely new juvenile board chaired by County Judge Lina Hidalgo. We had all new juvenile judges, new associate judges, and Kim Ogg had a new chief of the Juvenile Bureau. And with these changes, all of us wanted the same thing. We wanted to see less kids in the system and to divert kids out of our system and back into the communities, and we've done that. 2017, Sophia, we were averaging about 245 kids in our 210-bed facility in our detention center. Today, we're at about 111 kids in our detention center. What we did is we stopped letting kids into the detention center who did not need to be in there. And then as far as diverting kids, if a kid did not need to really go in front of the judge, let's not take them in front of a judge and make the family have to deal with all of that. So we have reduced our caseloads by at least 50%. What you're seeing now is pretty much only those felony cases going to court. The misdemeanors don't need to go to court, and let's divert those out of the system and let's connect them to the resources in the community. So really, I'm trying to make our department more community-based and using the resources in the families' direct communities, not just in Harris County overall, but where they can receive those services in their neighborhood.
Well, and I will say the following, working with you, you're all about the community. You're all about anything we can do, a community center, the charter school experience, whatever can be done. And I will say, as I'm contemplating everything you're doing, bringing it back to the Holocaust Museum, it is about the human touch. It is about the humanity of it all, to step back and address what needs to be done. For many of these kids, as this museum, there is a sobering history, but there needs to be hope. There needs to be a sense, it's the humanity, it's the history, but it is a sense of hope. Inordinately honored to have you visit with me for a few minutes, ecstatic about the Leadership Day we're doing together, not only for the kids, the juveniles that are present with us today, but all those that are going to be able to watch. You are proud of their progress. We as Houstonians are there rooting for them. We're advocating for them. And we're looking forward for a bright future with them as our youth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. More Latina Voices when we return. Carrie Max Cook was 20 years old when he was wrongfully arrested for a murder he did not commit. His unbelievable journey for truth, justice, and accountability involved nearly 4 capital murder trials, a hung jury, 3 wrongful convictions, and a walk to the execution chamber, 3 reversals of these convictions, and over 20 years on Texas death row. During Carrie's time on death row, he lost his entire family and was abandoned by everyone he ever knew. Carrie's legal journey has spanned 44 years and has involved countless legal battles, attempting to reclaim a stolen identity with an exoneration. His powerful life story epitomizes this institution: humanity, hope, love, resilience, perseverance, and the importance of a community, family, and friends. Carrie says it takes a city to raise a child. He comes with us today as an international influencer, hoping to make an impact on yours. He has on my life. My life will have ever be changed. He hopes he can make a difference. It's if you know that there's absolutely nothing you can't ask or he won't answer. He's already done his time, and this will be ours. Thank you, Carrie. We are honored and humbled to see you.
Thank you, Sophia. I'm very happy to be here.
It's been almost a year. We're about to have our first anniversary of our meeting.
Wow.
And what a glorious day.
Definitely.
We got to give credit to YPO.
Yes, without them, we wouldn't be here.
And your amazing wife, veteran, and Sandra. What a dynamic duo.
Thank you so much.
Carrie, there is so much. You're an open book, and I could spend hours with you. But in limited time, what would your message be? You started as a juvenile with some issues. What would you say to our youth in this Leadership Day at the Holocaust Museum, Houston?
Knowing that my time is limited and picking something that was very difficult for me to overcome, I would say that we have to avoid getting caught up in tunnel vision. Tunnel vision makes it where we can only see ourselves, we define ourselves by our situation. And we define ourselves by our situation, we can't move forward. There can be no future. So tunnel vision is something very important for kids not to identify themselves with, because then they think there's no way out, that this is who they are. And I will tell the kids that a single act, a single mistake, or a series of mistakes when you're young, that shouldn't define you. That there's always hope. With hope, determination, and resilience, and the right attitude, we can accomplish anything. And that's my story.
Yeah, you're right, but I can't imagine one day in incarceration. I can't imagine death row. And you did this for 20 years. I mean, standing at this Holocaust Museum, you had your own version of hell.
Yes.
How did How did you live day to day? How did you even survive?
I won't try to candy coat that. It was an impossible endeavor. Every day getting up and putting on my pants was like, am I going to be able to make it another day? Am I going to be able to overcome this? But I've got to live. The only way I can survive and overcome my wrongful conviction is if I live to fight, to come to the fight. But it was nearly impossible. But you know, like I say, I talk a lot about hope. Without hope, we have nothing. As long as we have hope inside, which the Nelson Mandela event that you brought me to,
yes.
I thought of Nelson Mandela, and I knew as I looked at the pictures, the writings, his writings, I saw hope throughout that, and I knew without hope, Nelson Mandela never would have survived. Without hope, I never would have survived.
I have to say this, and we've discussed this. Your vocabulary is extraordinary. I first met you because you were giving an inordinately powerful speech, as you do. I know you're about to do a TED Talk. There's been a Broadway show about your story. They're wanting to do a film. You have a book on chasing justice. Tell us a little bit about that. But first tell me, where were you educated? How did you learn these extraordinary words? How did you learn to be the Carrie Max Cook that I had the honor of meeting?
I got my degree from the University of Texas Death Row, from my experiences there. I came to death row as a 9th grade dropout, and my second chance came hitting death row, and I knew the only one that could save me was me. I turned my back on anyone at that point who could help me. I didn't have a Henry Gonzalez, or I never would have gone to death row. He would have saved me, like I'm sure he's saving a lot of these kids. But the book I wrote and how I educated myself as a 9th grade dropout, I studied everything I could get my hands on, and books.
You read the dictionary.
I read the dictionary backwards and forwards, and when I didn't understand a word, I'd ask a prison guard, a friendly prison guard, can you put this in a sentence? Can you define this word? So it happened very slowly, but you know, knowledge is gold, and that's the only money I had. It's the only money I could spend. So education was the way out, and education was what got me out. So I went from a high school diploma. I had to fight the prison system to be allowed to take the high school diploma because I was there to be executed, not educated. And then I took college correspondence courses. I had a 4.0 before the legislature took away my right to attend college because I was there to be executed. So knowledge was at all times critical, but as a teenager in detention, as I was in juvenile detention center, I didn't care about education. It took hitting that wall of Texas death row and knowing that I was the only one that could save me, that brought me to the realization that without education, I couldn't fight for myself. I couldn't reach beyond the prison walls. So education is critical.
Well, I will say I could spend hours talking to you, but you're exactly right. Education is the ticket. For you, education was your savior. It was the hope. I want to commend you and congratulate you. I am honored to call you a friend, and Houston is better because of Carrie Max Cook being here. Thank you.
Say one thing before I go?
Absolutely.
In terms of art, I think Henry Gonzalez emulates art because what he's doing is definitely a catalyst for change.
I thank you for
Harris
saying
County.
that. You're absolutely right. Art is a catalyst for social change, focus on justice and what we can do. And Henry Gonzalez, by having these kids come here, the juveniles, and all others that will get to watch, it is a conduit, it is an opportunity. Carrie Max Cook, you epitomize humanity, sobering history, and absolute hope. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome back, Latina Voices 2021. We're here at the Houston Holocaust Museum, an institution of sobering history, of action and hope. Houston leadership abounds with my guests today, Carrie Max Cook, Henry Gonzalez, and Chief Patricia Cantu. Join us. Welcome back to Latina Voices. Unbelievable. Yes, this epitomizes Houston, Texas. Now, one language, we're two languages, English and Spanish, but we've got at least 3 countries represented: Argentina, Mexico, Panama. We nailed it. Unbelievable. Now, of course, you notice the obvious difference. I don't get the luxury of wearing any sort of uniform, nor do I get the luxury of being called chief. That is what they both are. Chief Cantu, please introduce yourself and a little about you.
Good morning. I'm Patricia Cantu. I'm an assistant chief with the Houston Police Department. I grew up in Houston. I grew up in the eastern part of town, and I love the communities. I love working with people, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, and you have been serving, how long have you been with HPD?
I've been with HPD for 21 years, but I was with the Sheriff's Department for 8, so I have a total of 30 years of law enforcement experience.
We are almost the same. Me in law, different type of law. Unbelievable. Now, Chief, the assistant chief title, before I introduce your colleague, that doesn't really do you guys justice, meaning there's over 5,000 HPD, but there's very few assistant chiefs. So that's a pretty darn high title. Don't be shy, don't be humble. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm honored because it definitely is, we only have 8 assistant chiefs, so.
8 out of over 5,500 or
yes,
so?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have 8 assistant chiefs, so it's definitely an honor. It was work, we did the process, we took tests, we studied, and I'm very grateful that Chief Fenner recognized the hard work in both of us that we got to this position.
And 2 Latinas, yes! Okay, please introduce yourself, Chief.
Hi, I'm Chandra Hatcher. I'm an assistant chief with the Houston Police Department. I have been in Houston. I'm not from Houston originally. I'm from New York.
But you got here as soon as you could.
I sure did. and true story, I came here to visit my parents one summer, and it was so great here, I decided to stay. Oh. So I've been here for over 28 years, and I've worked with the Houston Police Department almost that whole time. I became a police officer, and I've had 21 years of service, but I started as a civilian employee working for the Houston Police Department. So I got a chance to peek into law enforcement life before I actually jumped in. And I love the path that has been placed in front of me. I love the responsibility and the opportunity to really connect and help youth who look like us know that there's a place for them, not only in law enforcement, but within our city.
You're absolute, Chief, that was so beautifully stated. We are an institution, and it is about the humanity. It is about the sobering history and for the opportunity for action. Chief, if you don't mind, I know a little of your story, just a little bit about the sobering story, and what's the message of the youth that are here with us today?
Here, I just want to let people know, the youth especially, that you don't have to grow up from a wealthy family. I didn't grow up in a wealthy family. We grew up, pobrecitos, like, in the neighborhood, in the barrio. We grew up very, very struggling, but we didn't really notice. We had the family love, the connection, but I also grew up in a house of domestic violence, alcoholism. I was sexually abused as a child. And so there's things that happen to us in life, and it doesn't matter where you come from. My dad was in prison, my uncle was in prison. So we have all these things that people want us to think that we're not, things aren't made for us. And here, the message here specifically for me is that just because other people in my family or my surroundings did other things, that didn't make up of what my future was for me. So here, what the message is, just because you're surrounded by that, that doesn't make you you.
It doesn't define you.
It doesn't define you.
It is about the resolve.
Yes.
It is about the resilience. And that's why I wanted to film here. We don't remember, we never forget. No. We remember. You never forget your struggles when you were young. You also don't forget the love that was shown when it could be shown. You remember there's the hope with the kaleidoscope, there's the history. But I have to say, I'm honored. Chiefs, Latinas, you really are doing justice to the cause, justice to the service, and I think what's most important is that we all remember the message of hope. I also happen to know, now we haven't gone through this, how many children do we have among us? I've had 3, you've had 4. How many?
I have 1 daughter and 5 grandchildren.
She has 5 grandchildren. Does she look like she has 5 grandchildren? No. She beats us all. Chiefs, I am honored. I want to thank you for your service. We talked briefly. I can't imagine, moment by moment, living my life being hyper scrutinized, being taped as I'm at the office doing my job. I want to thank you. I want to commend you. I'm also particularly thrilled because if you look at all three of us, if you did not have that uniform on and you did not have that uniform on, they would never think you're HPD. And that's the beauty. We come in all shapes, in all colors. We happen to actually have Latinidad en comunidad.
Claro que sí.
But we have a little bit of everything. But I do think it is about resilience. It is about hope. And we're honored to have you as we do Leadership Day for Harris County juveniles in the amazing, prophetic city of Houston. Thanks again, Chiefs.
Thank you for having us.
What a formidable first 3/4 of 2021. Here's to closure of 2021 as we navigate for a better, if not victorious, resilient 2022. Houston Strong on Latina Voices Smart Talk. As we close and we seek to survive and thrive, putting closure on the first 3/4 of 2021 and navigate into 2022, we have all learned perhaps more lessons than we thought were possible or desirable about a litany of things, about resolve, about resilience, about return, about reimagination, and about reform. Who can forget the Carrie Max Cook story? Who can forget the hope that Henry Gonzalez is bringing? Who can forget what Patricia Cantu, Chief Cantu, are trying to do for us in this community? I would say con fuerza, con ánimo, si se puede, todos juntos y saludos, with force and energy, with animus and excitement. Yes, we can, all together, and of course, greetings.